All right, this is the Olympic and Powerlifting program, Phase 1, Session 1. We're going to begin with some warm-up / cool-down exercises here. Just to take a note, I want you to check out the intro video first because there's a few things about this program that you should know that I talk about there first. I'm just going to run through all the exercises and explain them here. Arms behind the back stretches first. So I'm going to just clasp my hands together on the small of my back, squeeze my shoulder blades together to lift the arms off the back and feel the stretch across your chest. You can hinge at the hips also to add a little bit to this stretch. That's a 15-second hold there. Next, band pull-aparts. Grab a band and find the right level of resistance on this one. Choking out will decrease resistance. Bringing it closer together will increase resistance. And then you want to pull the band across your chest here, squeezing your shoulder blades together. And just look at the number of reps for each day on this. I won't go over it here. I'll just talk about the exercises. One leg balance is next. So I'm going to begin by establishing my balance on one leg. I'll then kick the leg up by squeezing my butt. And then if I feel confident too, I can lean forward or I'll hinge at the hips. Feel the stretch in the hamstring and feel like you're flexing strong through the up leg. Do both sides. A lying knee tuck stretch is next. You can come down to the mat and I simply tuck one knee in as tight as I can to the chest while the other leg is extended out straight. Tuck it tight. And then the last warm-up exercise, you're going to do some dumbbell thrusters, okay? So get a pair and get them up to your shoulders to start here, okay? And this is our first squat, so I want to set the feet slightly wider than the hips. I want to make sure to keep the heels down and the knees tracking over the foot and not caving in. Okay, so I'll start with my squat. I'll hit the bottom position. Ideally, I want the crease of my hip to go below my knees. So let's practice that every single time. Use this as a stretch in your warm-up here. And then out of the bottom, I'm going to extend my knees through, use the momentum of my hip extension to then thrust the weights and press the weights overhead and achieve full extension at the top of your thruster. Back down to the shoulders, down into your squat, and then you'll repeat this motion, a nice flowing motion. You really work on your depth and your spring in that exercise. Okay, now we're on to our strength exercise, and we're actually going to start with the two most complex exercises of Phase 1 right away. The first one is going to be a hang power clean, okay? So when I say hang, well, first of all, let's talk about where are we gripping the bar on the clean. See the amount of distance that I have outside of my hips. I can go a little wider. I can maybe come a little narrower. Just find your sweet spot there. And then if we can establish right away, if we can establish the false grip or the hook grip where I'm going to grab my thumb around the bar and then I'm going to grab onto my finger, this is always going to be a more secure grip of the bar for all of my Olympic lifting. There's a little bit of learning curve here, but if you can get your hook grip on the bar, you're going to have more success on your pulls. Okay, so when we say hang, we're talking about anything that's coming from above the ground. So I'm going to have the bar, instead of starting from the ground and doing the clean, I'm going to have the bar starting in what's referred to as the hang position. And for here, I want you to do what they would call a low hang clean. So I'm going to go to right above the knees, and this is the position I'm going to start with. Okay, look, my shoulders are in front of the bar. My hips are back. I have the angle in my torso. My knees are directly underneath, right above my heels. Now, I'm going to go in slow motion through this exercise first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actively sweep the bar into my hip by flexing my shoulder blades back. As I extend the hips, I'll make contact right here. I'll have extension here. And then the bar is going to be up in the air. It's going to be pulled up in the air. I'm extending through my hips, full extension of the hips. And then once I'm about here, I'm going to drop slightly, make heel contact, flip the bar over, get the elbows through into the rack position, and then I'll stand up on it. Let me do a couple repetitions here for demo. Okay, so what you notice is, you can think of it as a three-part movement. First is your setup. Second is your extension with the high pull. And the third is the drop and catch. So let's just talk about just the dropping part of it, okay? So I'm from here, and then I stick the hips back. It's actually pretty much the same position as I was here, maybe a little bit more upright when I catch. Heels are down, hips are back, shoulders are over the knees, which are over the heels. And then I have to get my rack position. Let's talk about this. So this is what I want. I have to have external rotation of my shoulders. Elbows are going to be pointing forward. They don't have to be totally up, but you want them to be pointing straight ahead, okay? Because the whole idea here, what I want to be able to do is get the bar onto my shoulders. If I'm holding the bar just in my hands, I'm going to hit a limit on that very quickly. But if I can hold the bar on my shoulders, I can hold a lot more weight on my shoulders than I can just in my hands, okay? So that's your hang power clean. I'll do a couple more reps. Get that full extension, and then dropping underneath it. Work on that. That's going to be one of the tougher ones. The next one that is also going to be tough is your overhead squat. So you may want to start with just a PVC pipe, okay? Just a PVC pipe. And you may also not yet be able to go to full depth, in which case you would probably want to do a bench overhead squat. So I can set up plates or be next to a bench so that I start by just going down a little bit, I'm tapping right here, and then coming back up. And then try to go a little bit, drop a little bit lower as you progress. But ultimately, I want to be able to go where the crease of my hip goes below my knee. That's the depth that I want. While also being able to stabilize the bar overhead directly over my shoulders. This is your goal here. It's going to require tremendous ankle mobility, hip strength and mobility, and also shoulder stability and mobility. So if you're not there yet on this one, which a lot of folks, if you're new to this, you're not going to be there yet. You got to work on it. But do be diligent about it. We can get you there. We'll work on it. But don't add weight until you're able to get that depth. Gotta get the depth first. Now it may help, if you're a pretty strong person already, it actually may help to use the bar or a little bit heavier object to have a reference point to where the bar is going to be pulling down on you. The PVC pipe doesn't give you that. So you may actually want to start with the bar a little bit heavier if you think you can manage that. And then we'll progress as is appropriate. Okay, so now, how I would want to set up if I was using a bar for the overhead squat, I would actually want it to be on a weight rack. I don't have a weight rack in here, but let's imagine that I do. Set your weight rack so that's right below your shoulders, and then I could get my head underneath it, and I'll step myself out. Okay, now, so I have the bar on my back. I want to set my shoulders, or set my hands to the appropriate width next. Now, if your shoulders are really tight, you might want to start going out a little further with your hands. But if we can come to where your hands are maybe placed double the width of your shoulders, that's going to be just about the ideal place. But you have some, you can play with it a little bit and do what feels comfortable for you. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I have to get the bar into position. I usually like to do a push press to get the bar into position. So I'm going to dip and then I'm going to drive and press to get that bar overhead. All right, now I'm in place and that bar is directly underneath my shoulders, squeezing the shoulder blades together. I'm going to tighten up, flex my hips, flex my abdominals, and get ready for the exercise. Set my feet slightly wider than shoulder width. And now here I go down. The first thing I'm going to do is send the hips back, keep the shoulders right underneath the heels here. And what I have to do for this is I'm really working my upper back muscles in order to have this mobility, to be able to get this little bit of opening of the shoulder so that my head can come through, my torso can angle slightly, but I'm still keeping the bar underneath my shoulders. And also my hamstrings have to open up. I'm pushing the hips back and my hamstrings will open up. From here now, I'll start bending the knees. I bend the knees, and here's where it's going to be really challenging for the ankles. It's really dependent on, are your ankles mobile enough to get down to this depth? It's extra hard compared to even like a back squat. Try to get that depth, and then you'll stand it up. and then you'll do your repetitions from here. And really, when you're starting out with the overhead squat, one of the main things is to just go slow on the descent. Slow on the descent. Make sure you can go through all parts of the range of motion. And because usually what happens is there's one point where you can go down to here real smooth, and then there's collapse of the knee, or you lose the bar forward. But if you go nice and slow and stay tight, 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 then that's how you can progress on this one. Great, that's your overhead squat. Bent barbell row is next. Okay, so for this one, using my barbell, I'm gonna come to a very similar position as I was with my hang clean, except for now I'm gonna let the bar drop so that it's below my knees. And I'm also gonna lean forward extra far. The hips can be up a little higher than it was for the clean. Okay, but notice the neutral spine, so I'm not rounding here. Check your posture in the mirror. Are you rounding your back? If you are, then you need to fix it. You need to arch your back here. Okay, my hips are back. I don't want my knees pointing forward on this. Get your knees back and out of the way. This will put a lot of stretch on your hamstrings here, but that's good. And then you have the feet extra narrow, okay, extra narrow base of the feet. Then from there, I'm just going to squeeze the shoulder blades together, which will probably raise the bar above the knee, and then pull the bar at a slight angle up to the belly button. Release the elbows, release the shoulder blades. Squeeze the shoulder blades, pull to the belly button at that angle, then release and release. And then it kind of just becomes one flowing motion. And this is your bent over row, barbell bent over rows. Back rack march is next. Again here, you're going to want to put the bar up on a rack. You definitely want to rack. You're going to have to rack this one. So I got the bar on my rack. I'm going to swoop my head underneath it, get it up onto my shoulders, and then step it off the rack, back it up 3 steps, and then I'm going to march in place with the bar on my back. And now the weight that I'm going to use for this exercise, I'm going to be using a pretty heavy weight for that exercise, okay? So it's really going to be as much as you can manage to hold onto your back. You're going to be challenging the strength, being able to just hold onto that bar on your back. So you have to really brace your abdominals, keep your shoulders down, and don't let your hips sway when you lift your leg. Try to stay neutral through the spine there, and pull the bar down on your back to stabilize your upper back muscles. That's your back rack march. All right, the next one I have are some diagonal lifts. So I could probably just grab a plate for this exercise. And this one I'm going to keep my shoulders and hips totally square, straight ahead. I'm going to start it on one hip, and then I'm going to lift it across my body to the opposite shoulder, and then back down. And I can go at a pretty quick tempo here. I'll show you from the side. You can see that my elbows stay mostly straight on that exercise. And do both sides. Don't let your shoulders turn on your diagonal lifts. Next I have payoff presses. I can do this with a cable or a band. Cables and bands are synonymous. You can do everything you do with the band, you can do with the cable. Now I hook the band around here. I take a 90-degree turn from the point of attachment. I step out to get some tension on the band, take a wide stance, have the band or my hands right at my midline, and then I press the weight out from my midline in a nice controlled manner back in and out. Now as I extend out, the band's going to want to pull me this way, but I have to use my abdominals and my hips and my shoulders to keep it coming in a straight line. Those are your payoff presses. 2 more, side planks and front planks. So you'll do both here. So front planks, I'm just on my elbows, and I really want to flex my legs and make sure I'm straight from shoulders through the hips to the heels. On the side plank, stacking the feet, head back, hips forward. Squeezing your legs on both of those will really help. And then calf raises are last. The best way I think to do your calf raise, if you do not have a calf raise machine, if you do use it, but if you don't, then you can put a plate down and go from there. But having the plate down will help to get through the full range of motion. You can hold on to weights if you want to as well, to add some resistance to that. Okay, that concludes the work. So next you would go on to your cardio. So you go into your cardio, I talk about that in a different video.